All right, guys, welcome back to Boots Come in Pairs. We have Cody Bellinger. About time. We've been complaining enough. I feel like all last week I was just kind of shaking my head the whole time at the lack of action that the Cubs were doing. But we have Cody Bellinger. He was taking batting practice today. He was talking to the media. So back in town. Initial reaction to getting Bellinger.
It is a immense relief, to tell you the truth, because adding him puts you back in that conversation that you were last year. And at this point, they have added people in addition to adding him. So what he does is provide a bat that is feared. And honestly, it gave me a little bit more of a not that I don't have a positive outlook about the Cubs prospects, but like getting Bellinger just kind of feels like, hey, we're going to transition well because some of these young guys look like they're going to be ready to go a lot sooner than you think. But I mean, just adding him in general and getting him at the contract that they got him at, not just it doesn't just benefit the Cubs, but it benefits him as well. 3 years, 80 million. Gives him the opportunity to opt out if he so chooses at any point. A very similar contract to Carlos Correa that he signed a couple years ago. He ultimately ended up re-upping, signing a bigger deal with Minnesota. But yeah, I mean, to me, having Bellinger back, I'm just hoping he can continue to build, continue to be healthy, and he's a bat that strikes fear into people when he's on and when he's healthy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you alluded to it. 3 years, 80 million, 30 this year, 30 next year, 20 2 years from now. Most likely, best case scenario, he opts out, right? Because he had a great year. He's an MVP candidate, and you're winning postseason games. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, he doesn't have a great year, and then you have him for next year because, of course, he'll opt in for $30 million. I like the timeline. I think you're right. It gives PCA some time to figure it out a little more. It doesn't put so much pressure on him to know it right away. Like he was taking some outfield reps, so he's definitely going to be probably the same guy last year. You have first base, center field. You have options now. You have more positions you can put him at, and he's just such a versatile player. He's Gold Glove at both, at least caliber. I don't know if he doesn't have Gold Gloves at both, but he is A+ defender. And yeah, the bat. That was another thing. They kept knocking his soft hit rate over the course of this. They're like, well, were his numbers last year sustainable? I think he made a swing change. I think he made a conscious effort to put the ball in play. And he succeeded. He had a ton of productive outs. He had a ton of guy on third base, I need to put the ball to the right side. So he takes a weak swing and his exit velo is down. I don't care about that. I don't really care if your average exit velocity is lower than league average because you're making good contact, because you're doing positive things. So did any of that scare you? Like, I'm sure you heard some of the chatter with why he's not worth what he's worth.
Yeah, I think that that those metrics don't really scare me at all. And again, like going back to just his transition to the Cubs from an organization like LA, like he was not healthy those last few years. He was not the player who won the MVP or the player who had an outstanding rookie season. Like I feel like with players, the sophomore slump is often something that happens more than people like to admit. And it's not that he didn't have a good second full season in the pros. It was just a little bit of a drop off from a really stellar rookie season. But then again, the guy rebounds. He wins the MVP. But I just those last couple years in LA were definitely injury related. His shoulder was not healthy. He's been very, very open about that. And I think that he finally, like the Cubs were very fortunate to have taken a flyer on him and it panned out, but he looked healthy. I agree with you. It looks like the swing has definitely changed. And when you say like not productive out, but like the hard hit rate, sometimes like your best swing and your hardest swing, it's not necessarily the swing that you need to take in a particular at bat. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'm just gonna try to like get my bat on this ball, and I might be lunging at it and dumping one into left field if you're Bellinger, just to get the run in. Like, so would you rather have a duck that falls in, or would you rather hit a freaking smoke shot at someone that gets caught and then you
Right.
don't
Well,
drive the run in?
the,
So it's situational.
the difference with Cody Bellinger is not he hit that ball hard. It's the strikeout. And that's what was killing him in LA, is that you're making no production on that at bat. Because again, you put the ball in play, maybe someone makes a mistake. Maybe he finds that hole. Okay, so he got a couple extra hits last year because he was putting the ball in play and just found that hole that wouldn't normally be a hit. Okay, that's fine, but you're giving yourself the opportunity to do that, and that wasn't available when you're striking out and you're swing and miss. And that's a lot of these guys. I mean, Chris Bryant also had a lot of swing and miss when he was with the Cubs, and it kind of drove people crazy. But like when you don't even give yourself the chance, that's why like I understand there's going to be regression. You know, he might not hit 306 this year, but I will take the chance because he's kind of made a swing change and an approach change. That's why I would lean towards like, okay, again, 3 years, you're not hurting yourself. And again, you're the Cubs, worth $4 billion. You're not hurting yourself by signing these guys. You could sign them for 10 years. It doesn't matter. But it's such a boost. And I think there's so much put on the analytics of like, exit velocity, launch angle. You know what? I'm sorry. I don't care how high that ball went in the air. A sacrifice fly is a sacrifice fly. So I don't really care what your launch angle is. And like, those numbers are important for when you're trying to put the ball over the fence. When you're hitting it 450 feet, it does not matter what your launch angle is. So I think some of those stats they try to base numbers off of, especially for contracts. But I will take a guy that puts the ball in play over the swing and miss any day.
Yeah. At the end of the day, he is still Cody Bellinger, and he's still a guy who's performed at the highest level, and he's been in meaningful games, and the Cubs need 10 more guys like that. The more experience, the more veteran presence. Bellinger for sure puts him over the edge, but I mean, even the signings that occurred before Bellinger, I mean, I'm still optimistic about those guys. I'll take David Peralta. I'll take Dominic Smith. I'll take they signed Garrett Cooper to a minor league contract as well. I'll take more veterans because guess what? You're going to need a whole squad to go 162 and beyond. You need those guys to compete.
Right. Those moves aren't as like emphasized though. Like those are fine. Those are good pieces now. Now that you have signed somebody, but now you're kind of back to square one. And it's like these are all just bonus things. And it's like, all right, you're gonna need most of these guys throughout this course of the season because someone's gonna get hurt, someone's gonna get moved around, their game's gonna go to hell, and they're gonna end up in AAA. So you have to factor in for that. Someone's got to play third base right now too. Who knows what that looks? Is that Michael Busch now? Does he slide over? Is it Morel because he's having a good spring? Is it Madrigal? Is it Wisdom? Like no, it's not Wisdom. But you need 26 guys, so you got to fill out your roster somehow. David Peralta is a lefty power bat. Which if he gets 120 bats this year, that's great. But when you hadn't signed anybody, and that was your biggest signing, it's essentially besides Hector Neris of the offseason, it's completely frustrating. I think they're not done. I've heard a trade rumored. You still have guys out there available to sign. So we'll see what else they do, but it's a good start. Another thing
I'm excited. I'm excited and I'm optimistic because even at this point, like you have signed one of the best starting pitchers in Imanaga, at least sought after pitchers. You signed one of the most sought after bats. You signed one of the most sought after relievers. So they shouldn't be done by any means, but like signing Bellinger kind of just puts that ease in the back of our minds. And again, hopefully they're not done and they continue to add. I mean, I've even heard some crazy things thrown out there that Craig Counsell could go to a 6-man rotation, which would be pretty interesting. And I mean, signing another one of those arms, you could do that if they decide to trade for Jesus Luzardo from Miami. That's been a rumor. If they do sign Montgomery or Snell, you have Imanaga, you have Steele, You have Wicks, who's looked really good. He's definitely a starter type guy. Tyone, Kyle Hendricks. There's a lot of guys who could be starters and give you Javier Assad. They could give you starter innings.
Three of those guys, though, that you just mentioned haven't pitched full seasons. Wicks came out at the end. He was strong. Great. Assad, was reliever and then we'll stretch him out, throw him in the rotation because we needed to. Okay. And then Imanaga, it's like they do a 6-man rotation in Japan. They don't pitch nearly as much. So it'll be interesting if you start with all these guys, how do they look in August?
Yeah.
How do they continue? Because even Kodai Senga last year started out great. I remember people were like, oh my gosh, his bullpen is insane. And that's kind of the same reaction you're getting from Shota is like, oh my gosh, have you seen this guy throw a bullpen? But what does he look like when you start getting, that tread on the tires and it's the grind of the season and you're pitching every 5 days.
Yeah. Has he already had a DL stint by then? Or has he been shut? Right. Has he missed a couple starts for rest? Right. You don't know.
Mm-hmm. So I'm excited that they have options, and that's really what you want to create, especially with a bullpen, because and you're right, I think you said a couple weeks ago, they need 4 or 5 more arms. They do, because your bullpen does not look the same as it does in April compared to October. You have different guys contributing. I mean, last year, Merriweather was just done. He was taxed. And they've done this so many times where they just have these guys that look good in short stints, but you throw them out there every day because you have no other option, and it's eventually it catches up to them.
You have to take care of those premium arms, and I'll even throw Mark Leiter Jr. in there. The guy was lights out, pitched probably the best stretch of his career first half of the season. He was probably one of the most valuable relievers in baseball, but he just was overworked, and they were going to Merriweather and him every single day. Adbert was out. You had all these. Fulmer was out. He missed time. You need to be deep. You can't go like in the NBA where you have the short rotation. You're playing all your starters 40 minutes and you got no one on your bench. The relievers, if you can keep them fresh, that is the key. Give them a break. Allow them to have their best stuff most of the time if they're well rested. So, I mean, more arms are better. The Cubs got some other young guys as well who would be interesting. I mean, down the stretch, if they're there, are they going to come up and make a spot start? Are they going to relieve? That Ben Brown is special. He's a fireballer. I've been seeing Caleb Killian's name in there as well. Luke Little's a fireballer too. We're definitely going to see some guys take a step forward this year. It'll just be interesting to see how Craig handles all these arms.
Well, one of the knocks on David Ross was his, managing the bullpen, and he didn't do a good job. Well, Craig Counsell has also been criticized in Milwaukee for not handling his bullpen very well, but he also hasn't had anybody. He's like, I trust Josh Hader. I trust Devin Williams. That's who I'm going to put out there. And it might be for multiple innings, but you know what? If you don't give him any other options, I think there was a point, Ross, he's like, who do you want me to pitch? Who do you want me to throw out there? He goes, I can try things, but if we get into the pinch of it and it's a high leverage situation, I only trust XYZ. And that was last year was Merriweather, Leiter Jr., and Eber Alzolay. So when you constantly throw those guys out there, they're going to get seen more, especially by your division. You're going to see them, 16, 18 times, whatever it is. And then, the more miles you put on that arm, the more times they have to warm up, they're just going to have less and less juice in the tank. So it'll be interesting if you don't add any more bullpen, and then you expect Craig Counsell just to magically voodoo the bullpen together. It's the same scenario. So you got to give Craig Counsell the pieces, and some of it will be on him. He'll have to finagle the third base situation for now, and kind of pull the right strings with the lineup. But if you give him no arms out in the bullpen, what do you want him to do? What do you want him to do? I think Class A would be a great move for them.
Yeah.
And that's been in the works, or at least I've been hearing rumblings of they're searching for a closer. So
that would be adding Emmanuel Clase would be a game changer. That just elevates things that much more. Then you could have your back end of the rotation. Oh my goodness! Wow.
You can also add that closer later in the year from a team like Pittsburgh that maybe didn't use Aroldis Chapman all year. Okay, give us him. He's healthy. He's rested. We'll give you, one of our top prospects that we're not going to use anyways. I think you can always add. Actually, it was funny when the Cubs added Quas last year. They added a reliever from Kansas City. All I saw was like Cubs add Kansas City reliever. I'm like, oh, Barlow or whoever's in the back end. And it's like, no, Quas. I'm like, who the heck is Jose Quas? And he pitched okay, but I'm like that was not.
No.
I guess not moving on from some guys was their big piece, but not trading Bellinger.
Yeah.
But yeah, and still some free agents out there. Matt Chapman's still out there. I wonder Scott Boras clients if they're like, because this was a loss for Scott Boras. This Cody Bellinger deal did not go. He thought he was going to get a $300 million deal.
Yeah.
So if you're Matt Chapman, if you're Blake Snell, if you're Montgomery, what are you thinking? Are you thinking, can he get me this money, or am I going to have to take essentially a franchise tag? I know there's no franchise tag in baseball.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Cody Bellinger just signed.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think's in store for those 3 remaining Boras clients?
Yeah, I mean it's very interesting, and I haven't listened to any of Bellinger's his thoughts on the matter, any interviews or anything. I've seen a couple clippings, and how he kind of summed it up was that the market just kind of dictated that was the kind of contract that he was going to get, and he's excited to be back in Chicago. At the end of the day, $30 million a year is $30 million a year. You know that you're going to be in one spot for the next 3 years with a fan base that adores you, that wants you to do well. And if you so choose, if the market calls for it, you can opt out and you can go chase it again. If I were those guys, all three of them, JD Martinez is a little bit different because he's a bit older than the other guys. I would take a deal. If there's deals out there that are similar to Bellinger's, I would take it. If I were Blake Snell, I would take the Yankees 5-year, $150 million deal. I would take that. It's not going to be, and we kind of talked about it on the last show. We're at the end, unless you're this generational player, we're at the end of these 10-year deals for guys who are in their late 20s and early 30s. You just got to look at the money that you're getting per year, and maybe your contract's 3 to 5 years, but that's what you're going to get. I think the dealings for Boras, unless he has generational younger talent, like guys who are 25 years old and have proven themselves already, they're the only guys who are going to get those big contracts. Even looking at San Diego, like signing Bogarts to that long of a deal, that was a mistake. Xander's a wonderful player. Even Mookie Betts, who's one of the best in the game, if not the best in the game, a 10-year contract is a long time. He's going to perform for a lot of it, but 10 years is a long time.
For a guy that 1 year in, they're moving to second base.
Yeah.
Which he said he wasn't going to do. And now you're 1 year into your 10-year deal, and it's like, oh, yeah, I'll slide over now that you gave me all this money. And I know he's a good athlete, and he's a good shortstop, but you didn't pay Xander Bogaerts to come over here and be your second baseman. That's a lot of money. Because Tim Anderson did the same thing. The White Sox were trying to sign him, and he goes, give me the contract, and then I'll move over. And it's like, no, we're going to pay you second base money because that's where we want you to play. Now he's at Miami for $5 million, and life comes at you quick. But San Diego is almost to the Mets level of collapse of just like, hey, we spent all this money and now we're nowhere close. And now we have Xander Bogaerts locked in at second base.
Yeah, at second base. And then, they definitely didn't make the most out of having Soto there. No. I think Manny Machado initially signed his deal with them because people were confused about that. They're like, oh, well, he really didn't get the most money from the Padres. It was just he got a lot of money, and then there was a lot of promise, like, hey, we're going to go out and get some guys. Then they were able to do it, and they didn't do anything. Like, you're still in the NL West, but you didn't do anything.
You can't knock the Padres for not trying. They definitely
tried.
They tried to put it together. It just didn't work.
No.
And what do? Now you have – this is the flip side of why some teams are hesitant to go this way. because if it doesn't work, now you're stuck with all these contracts, and you left. But now they're recovering. It's like, all right, we have Manny Machado and we have Bogarts for the next 7 years, 8 years, whatever it is. How do we make this work around these guys? Are they going to be productive in the next window? Because this current window didn't work. I don't know. Yeah, that's
Well, it might mesh a little bit better because so you trade Soto. The Yankees really are only going to have him for a year, and then he gets to test the open market. But you got a haul in return, a lot of starting pitchers who are ready, a lot of really good arms. Whether starting pitchers or relievers, you have really nice young players who are very, very close. This kid, I think his name is Ethan Salas. Have you heard about him? The catcher. He's 17 years old. He got an invite to spring training already, and very impressive. They got another kid, Jackson Merrill, who's really, really close. He's excellent too. Obviously, you still have Tatis. You still have Kim. You still have all these guys. So I expect the Padres to gel maybe a little bit better.
Their infield is still really good. You have
really
Machado, Kim, Bogarts, and Cronenworth. That's a pretty good infield.
It's really good.
And then you have Tatis in the outfield, who's now a Gold Glover, and he's still Fernando Tatis, and he obviously has not let his suspension stop him too much.
No.
But you can piece it together, and then you're right in it. I mean, you're competing with the Dodgers, yes, but at the same time, unless you face them in the first round of the playoffs, hopefully they get bounced or something. So
yeah. So going back to the contract and these remaining guys, I expect very similar contracts. I don't expect them to be out for too much longer. Like, they're going to sign with somebody. And I think Cody's contract kind of set the market for Boris clients. I think that the pitchers might get a little bit more as far as years, maybe. I expect Chapman to get about a 3-year deal. I think Martinez, at this point in his career, he's going to be going year to year. I'd be surprised if he got a 2-year or 3-year deal. He might take a flyer on somebody. They've been saying the Cubs are a good fit. They've been saying the Rangers are a good fit. I feel like he would fit really well in both those offenses and both those parks. But yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. And honestly, I think it's refreshing for the game to see the super agent Scott Boras kind of on his heels. Like teams are dictating the market. He's not dictating it.
Yeah, they basically said no. I don't love JD Martinez for the Cubs because I feel like they have so many options, and to get everybody in the lineup, you need that DH slot just to keep everyone fresh, just to keep everyone like, okay, you're getting an off day, but that just means you're DHing. I think JD Martinez clogs up your DH.
He does.
Because he can't play. He can play first, but he's not a great first baseman. He can play outfield.
We don't want him out there.
Outfielder.
No.
We already have Ian Happ out there. We don't need him. No,
Two Gold Gloves.
He's Gold Glover.
Two.
But, in left field. But I think I will take all the players they get. That's fine. I would take him over Trey Mancini from last year. But I don't think they need him based on how many players they're going to have flying around. And I think Christopher Morel doesn't really have a home. They're trying him at third base. No. But he's your de facto DH, if things go awry.
Yeah. So, but he's probably the most valuable trade chip that they have. So he could be somebody who, like, hey, we're intrigued by him. Cleveland, we're intrigued by him. Miami, they could get Clase, they could get Luzardo in a package that included Christopher Morel. Yeah. So he's also a trade chip in my opinion. But again, like we were talking about earlier, like you got guys like Peralta and Cooper now and Dom Smith. And then you do have Wisdom and Madrigal. You do have Michael Busch, who's going to play. Yeah. PCA is going to play. Canario is going to play. Like, all these guys they're going to play. They have a lot of guys who are really, like I said,
I've seen
close
Canario
to being
in left. Where else is Canario?
Center.
Outfielder? Center. Okay.
Yeah, he's an outfielder, but he's 23. Young guy.
I know PCA, Canario, Morel, they're not all going to hit. Someone's going to struggle. So who struggles the most? And I've heard it from Jed. I've heard from Harvard. They want Pete Armstrong to play. So if he's struggling at the major league level, I would not be shocked if he started the year in Iowa, just because you don't want him degressing at the major, like watching the major league. No, you want him taking at bats, getting better.
Yeah.
He's already, you alluded to it several times, he's already the best center fielder based on his rating in the outfield. So like that's not in question, but his bat is a question mark. And he's had a couple hits in spring already. That's fine. I'm not going to read into anything any of these guys do in spring training. But the bat will be a question in April when he gets going. I heard Matt Mervis's name today too. I'm not even thinking about Matt Mervis. I don't.
No,
That'd be
his name's
option.
not.
Yeah,
his name's not there. He was intriguing for a hot second, but I mean, I'm giving Bush all the opportunity over him.
Yeah. Bush, Bellinger, who they just signed Dominic Smith. He's a good first baseman.
Yeah, and so is Garrett Cooper. Garrett Cooper's a good first baseman. He's good.
So you're giving yourself options. If they don't work out, they're on minor league contracts. Send them down.
Yeah, you move on.
Yeah,
if they perform, then great. If not, then they don't. And guess what? They still might sign Matt Chapman. They might. You can't rule that out.
The one pitcher I want them to pursue, and I don't know if they are. The only thing I've heard on Jordan Montgomery is that he is not interested in going back to St. Louis.
Yeah,
that is all I've heard out of that. They're not looking to reunite. Otherwise, I've heard nobody connected to him. I don't like Blake Snell.
No, I haven't either.
I've heard the Yankees. I think I saw Baltimore, maybe to Blake Snell.
I've heard Anaheim as well. Los Angeles, the Angels.
Okay, maybe they'll win.
I wouldn't want to go there.
Maybe they'll win 68 games instead of 67.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would never want to play on a team with Anthony Rendon. That would drive me bananas. But yeah, Montgomery, I think he's fair. Like, he's basically to the highest bidder at this point. He probably wants the 7-year deal. I don't know how old he is, but
he's like in his 30s. I think he's 30. He might be 31, maybe.
5-year deal. Yeah, I
late
think
20.
I think the pitchers want the longer deal because
they're not going to get it.
But they want the longevity. They want hey, I can get hurt or I can have a bad couple of years and still have a contract. That's what they're looking for. But that would be the one I'd be interested in because I feel like having Steele and then another lefty like that would be a good
and Imanaga.
Imanaga's lefty. See, I haven't even.
He is.
I couldn't even tell you that. I don't even know. But I saw his bullpen. I just didn't really pay attention to whether he was a righty or lefty. I was just like, oh, here, like he just has that like weird pause thing, and the ball's coming in deceptively. So that's fine.
Yeah.
But okay, well, so for you, if the hill you had to die, you had to pick one of these remaining free agents. Who's the guy? I
would really. The third base thing is really important. I think the sexy pick to me would be Blake Snell. But the questions with him is that like he does not go deep into games,
right,
and he walks a lot of guys. I think Blake Snell, like that would get the writers going like, oh, instant World Series, but I don't think that's the World Series thing. Montgomery to me is tough. So I'm kind of on that like Montgomery and Chapman hill. I think Matt Chapman is the guy that I really, really want, but I would really, really like for them to add another starting pitcher. Like you were saying, there's some of these guys who have not either pitched a full season in the big leagues or they've been at like Shota, been in another league and not gotten the like 200 plus inning mark. Having a guy like Montgomery who's a horse, that is really intriguing as well. So it's difficult for me to choose between those two. I think that shoring up the infield would make me feel a lot better, and they could figure the arms out, whether it be via trade or adding another guy. I would say Chapman, but I have a feeling that he's going to reunite with Bob Melvin in San Francisco. That's what I think.
Could be. And we also called the Brandon Crawford to St. Louis. That just made too much sense. I don't know why. I don't know why that didn't happen sooner, but it just makes way too much sense for the Cardinals to sign a guy like that. So congratulations to them. You're welcome. Maybe we predicted more of the future. I would agree. Matt Chapman, I think you're going to go trade for that guy at the trade deadline if you don't have him. So why not just start with him?
Yeah.
Like you trade
It's like, the third base experiment didn't work again. Now we got to sign a legit guy who can play the position and hit.
Now we need to trade, the Nationals for their third baseman. It's just we're just riding the
just sign him.
He's there. Roller coaster. All it costs is money. It won't cost you prospects. So trying to save you, Jed. I'm trying to save you some agony and just spend your money because you won't spend it. But that's fine. Ricketts doesn't listen either. Other topic this week that I've heard, it's been kicked around a lot. We didn't, any of our Oakland people, we didn't burden them with this, but the Oakland A's and the stadium talks are picking up with where they're going to play. Rob Manfred basically set a deadline of April. You need to figure out where you're playing next year because there's no solid plan yet. They keep going back and forth with Oakland, and Oakland's like, well, if we let you stay, we want the expansion team. All that aside, the biggest problem here, and my favorite guy, Eric Burns, was talking about it, the biggest problem is that Oakland has been pushing to build a new stadium since the late 90s. And in that time period, you've had several teams build 2 stadiums. You've had the Braves build Turner Field, and now SunTrust Field. You've had the Rangers build Ballpark in Arlington, and now rebuild Ballpark in Arlington to Globe Life. That's the problem, is that you just have people pop up stadiums all the time. The Royals are looking to do it. This should not take 20 plus years to get a stadium approved. I know there's a lot of stuff getting in the way, but you have the White Sox trying to do the same thing. From a fan's perspective, do you care what it takes to get a ballpark?
I think you just need to get it done. You owe your fans and your players an experience. I saw this. It was a graphic. So they were talking about the A's Fan Fest or whatever, and they showed when it was paid for by the team and no one showed up, and then they showed fan supporting, fan fundraising, and it was packed. Oakland is a baseball city, such a rich history of champions and great coaches and great players. The demand is there. It's there, and they need to do something. There were renderings a few years ago that were showing the same thing, the Warriors getting a new stadium and Oakland, the A's getting a new stadium. Honestly, man, they owe it to this franchise, and this ownership just needs to part ways. Just they've been the downfall of this team. This team has been very successful. Not even that long ago. It wasn't that long ago where they were the best team in the West, where they were a force to be reckoned with. They were a tough team you did not want to face, and even now. They have a lot of young, hungry players who love the fan base. They love repping this team, and they're trying to win in spite of what ownership is or isn't doing. So they got to do something. I really think it's good for baseball for them to be in Oakland. That's my opinion.
Yeah, but you have to get a new ballpark. It's mind-boggling that you've gone this long and you've switched ownership now, and no one wants to pay. These billionaire teams, these billionaire owners are, crying to the public, oh, we need all this money. It's no, you really don't. I understand why they do it. It's fine. Everyone gets funding for a stadium. And then there's always the pushback. Oh, well, I don't want to pay for it in my taxes. You know what, though? You don't care. As a fan, you don't care. Let's be real. You know what it costs and what it takes to have a major league team. Last year when the Brewers were threatening to leave, I like being close to a Major League Baseball stadium. I like being, you want that a part of your city. And to take that away, you don't want to see the opposite side of that, because then your tourism is going to completely tank and everything else is going to go with it. But the other sad part about Oakland is they used to, have this massive farm system and just constantly reproducing players, but they don't have that anymore. They have a bad major league team. They have a bad system, and they're going nowhere. And their fans see that, and they just see this lack of trying. And I think that's why the frustration with the White Sox, because they're looking like, hey, we want to move them to Nashville. We want to move them downtown further. The problem is not the stadium with a lot of these things. If you put we were in Oakland when they were in a pennant race. They packed the stadium. They do. If you have a good team, they'll show up. Same with the White Sox. If you have a crappy team, it doesn't matter if you build a new stadium. No one's going to come because you're not putting a good product on the field. No one wants to pay to see that. You have a few anomalies. You have Wrigley Field, you have Fenway Park, you have Yankee Stadium. People are going to go to those. The rest of baseball, unless you're good, does not draw. So if you're not even attempting to put a team on the field, what are you doing? So I think it just beats the horse. But I don't know. I just thought he was making a lot of convincing points of just the amount of stadiums other teams are willing to build compared to Oakland still sitting on one, and it's a football stadium. Mm-hmm. But hey, they might share it with an MLS team now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't understand why. It doesn't make any sense. It comes down to just greed and wanting to keep the money in your pocket. I think even Reinsdorf is asking for it to be, for the new White Sox stadium to be tax funded. It's dude, you've been with the Bulls and with the Sox, you've been cheap. He's lucky. He got lucky with the United Center, it being such a important place and a great venue, not just for sports, but for other entertainment as well. But yeah, you're not doing anything to improve either one of these franchises that you're in charge of ultimately. He keeps buying up parking lots. I see that. But I don't know, man. I like that we're getting into this more. Not that the owners really care, but I think more people, especially fans, need to start questioning ownership, start questioning the experience that they're having. Are they really doing it for the fans, or are they doing it for themselves?
So we, talking to all of our baseball professionals, you realize that this is a business, and it is an entertainment business. You're paying for an experience. But what experience are you paying for when the team is horrible and it's not a good product? So yeah, for the White Sox to be claiming, because I think Jerry goes oh, the year after the World Series, we only drew 2.9 million. We should have drawn 3 million. Okay. So you just decide to tank for the next 20 years? That doesn't make any sense either. You're right. And they all do it. They all ask for public tax dollars. The Bears are doing the same thing. They want to use public funding to do Arlington Park. Okay, we don't want to lose the Bears. You don't want the state of Illinois to lose the professional football team like the Rams went to LA from St. Louis. You don't want that. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense. But that's the trade-off, is we're going to end up paying for it somehow, or whoever. They say, it's going to come out of the hotel tax is what we're going to add this to. That's fine. Could you use that money elsewhere? Probably. But we don't. That's not what it's about. We like sports. We like entertainment. But this is an entertainment business. Mm-hmm. If I'm a White Sox fan, I'm not entertained. Flat out. We can ask John again. We can, and he's been very candid about it. It's not entertainment when you're suffering through an 100-loss season.
Yeah.
And that's why,
with nothing else coming down the pipeline either, really. The White Sox do have a couple really nice players coming up, but there's not much, and there's not much on the major league team either. So got to do something. It's not minor league baseball. The fans are not coming for the extras. They're coming to watch the talent on the field. Or if you got a great ballpark and Ballpark Village, good place to just hang out for a while with friends, but they don't have that either. So.
And they're not going to build it. Jerry Reinsdorf is not going to spend the money to build a Ballpark Village. So you can get a new stadium, you can get all this stuff, and it can be closer to the city. And then the White Sox fans that are we like to tailgate. There's no parking lots anymore. So you alienated all 6 of your fans that go to the games. That's not the problem with the White Sox. The stadium's not bad. We were there this summer. It's not that bad. It's not decrepit. It's not falling apart.
No,
it's
it's
in
pretty
a
nice actually.
it's in a bad location. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But like,
The food is phenomenal.
food's
They have great
good.
food.
Team
Great
stinks.
food.
That's
Team
that's the
stinks.
problem. So,
Yeah.
but we'll continue to dive into that because I think that is it's the most fan topic that we have because that's all you have is how you spend your ticket money, right? How many games am I going to go to based on how good this team is? And I think we also do the same thing with the Cubs. We want to hold them to that higher standard as a fan. Like, hey, I'm not just happy to be at Wrigley anymore. I want to see winning baseball. It's fun to see a team win 90 plus games every year and be competitive and compete. So
Yeah.
I want to see
It
divisional
is.
titles. So,
For sure.
all right. Well,
Definitely.
anything else for this week? Not a ton going on other than spring stuff.
Yeah. It's just exciting to see baseball on the tube again, man.
Yep.
Like it's just fun. Just seeing the ball fly, seeing the fans getting excited. One day, I would love to go to spring training in Arizona. We have pretty fond memories of visiting a few spots in Florida and Bradenton and in Fort Myers, Pirates and Red Sox. But I think it'd be a blast to head down to Arizona and see some talent. I like what I'm seeing just all over baseball so far when it comes to just seeing this score, seeing the box scores full, seeing players that you recognize and other guys who you may not recognize. And it's cool seeing these young guys for the Cubs perform to start. Lots of promise when it comes to some of these younger dudes, and I think they will be making their way up sooner than we realize.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And Ryan Noda with a couple knocks today and a home run leading off the game. So that's always
Him
fun.
him and Zach G back to back.
He's already having a much better spring than last year.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
pressure's off, man. Just go.
This
go
is
rake.
going to be going to Oakland a little bit. This is going to be a different team this year for sure. Signed some veteran arms. Got some really young guys who are looking to take a step forward. Like Jess tipped us off to. We know who JP Sears is, but she said this is going to be his year as far as coming forward. Obviously, you have Paul B and signed a couple of veterans in the starting rotation. I mean, hopefully another healthy full season for Ryan. Zach Geloff, Nick Allen, all these guys. Third base is obviously still a question. I saw that they grabbed Miguel Andujar, so maybe he'll provide some. He's got some thunder in his bat. He's trying to make his way back into relevance. Got Estui out there. Seth Brown. You got a lot of guys who are.
I think they'll be interesting. I don't know how good they're going to be, but I think they'll be interesting. But we will always be watching anyways, just because, again, anytime you take Major League at bats, we will watch. So
for sure.
But okay, well, other than that, we will next week. We got a couple other things lined up, and we'll get back to it then.
All right.
Till then, boosts come in pairs. Take it easy.
Peace, y'all.